he should have a good association with seeing Bengals helmets. Bengals helmets means we won the Super Bowl. I don't know what's happened to Aaron Donald between February and August. He no longer has a good association with Bengals helmets. He's incorporating Bengals helmets into some of the funky training routines we've seen from Aaron Donald over the years, Charean, and we're getting right to it because he got right to it yesterday. I mean, what in the world are you doing, Aaron Donald? What happened to get him blow that kind of a gasket? Not one, but two helmets swung, and when you hear the video, you can hear it connect. That helmet hit something. Now, maybe it was just shoulder pad material, but it's just alarming. And I know we see videos of training camp fights all the time, and we look forward to them. We do. It's a rubbernecking type of thing. It adds some spice to an otherwise mundane period in the NFL calendar when it's just guys practicing against each other. It's just practice. Who cares? Well, we care when a guy starts swinging fists and or helmets, Charean. So that was a stunner yesterday afternoon, and obviously we're going to be spending some time breaking down what happens next in the aftermath of a pretty egregious, you would think, violation of the rules, whatever the rules may be.
Yeah, Mike, I've attended a ton of these joint practices, and you expect them to fight because that's what always happens. And they know what the rules are. They know they're not going to be penalized if they fight. It's a chance to see other guys. It's a chance to fight without any rules, without being punished for breaking any rules. And so we see these all the time, but I don't know if I've ever seen one quite this bad. Maybe the Cowboys had one a few years ago, and I can't remember the team, but it got to the side.
The Rams.
It was the Rams. And the fans kind of started getting involved. I was there for that one, and that one kind of got out of hand, and I would say this one kind of matches that or is worse because Aaron Donald really could have injured somebody badly swinging those helmets the way he was swinging them. And we saw it with Myles Garrett last year, or 2 years ago, 2019, in that game that he had. And we were worried that someone was going to get hurt. I was really worried someone was going to get seriously injured the way he was swinging those helmets, but apparently everyone came out of it no worse for wear.
Well, but here's the reality. And there's the Myles Garrett play from November of 2019. He and Mason Rudolph getting into it, the helmet coming off eventually, and then Myles Garrett using the helmet as a weapon and actually making contact at the top of Mason Rudolph's head and somehow not knocking him out cold. That's the most amazing thing. Some people have skulls of granite, and I would say Mason Rudolph does, because he took that helmet to the top of the head, and he didn't even flinch. He was more concerned about where's the flag? Hey, what are you going to do about this? So we know what the NFL did about it when Myles Garrett engaged in that infraction. He was suspended for the rest of the season. We didn't see him again. It was a big deal. He was a pariah for a while. He has migrated past that. He's been a model citizen since then. Whatever happened that night, and there was plenty of discussion about things Mason Rudolph may have said to precipitate that outburst, and that was never really resolved. Remember, there's no field audio of Mason Rudolph saying anything to Myles Garrett that may have caused that, but that was a big deal. That burned brightly for a while in NFL circles because of the stunning nature of what we saw. And it's exactly what we saw yesterday, even more stunning, because it was Aaron Donald, one of the great players in the NFL, with two of the helmets, clearly swinging them violently into a scrum of players. And the reason why something needs to be done, and please spare me the you're just being a hall monitor. You could kill somebody with one of those helmets. You could. You hit him the right way, or as the case may be, the wrong way. You could inflict serious injury or death on someone with a football helmet. If you don't believe me, go get a football helmet and see what it feels like in your hands. Feel the weight of a football helmet, how solid it is. You swing that thing, or more specifically, you go acquire the strength of Aaron Donald and swing that thing. I mean, it's one thing for one of us to swing a helmet, and we could do serious damage to someone with a helmet if we swung it at them. You put the power of Aaron Donald into someone's body, and you start windmilling around a football helmet, you could kill someone. It's not hyperbole. And I know people they clown about it, and it's funny. It's not funny when someone gets killed and or seriously injured. I don't want to go too far over the top. I mean, I would be stunned if somebody actually got killed by it, but it's within the risks reasonably to be assumed when you start swinging around a helmet with the strength of Aaron Donald. And my point is this, and this is a classic example of how the NFL is reactive and not proactive. Because the first time one of these incidents happens, Charean, and somebody does get seriously injured or worse, the NFL will react as if this is the worst thing we've ever seen, and we will make major changes immediately to make sure it never happens again. But they won't do it until the bad thing happens. They'll never do it before the bad thing happens. They'll just keep rolling the dice that the bad thing's never going to happen. And then when it happens, oh, we never foresaw this happening. Well, how did you not foresee it? We've seen multiple examples of guys swinging helmets at other guys' heads. We know it could happen. So why not stop it? Why not recognize it for what it is? It is an opportunity, a possibility that a serious injury is going to happen. So we just can't have it. The first time somebody tries to do it, regardless of the outcome, that's when it needs to be nipped in the bud. That's why something needs to be done about this. And hopefully the NFL will figure out a way to do something about it, because the problem is, and I was told this yesterday, this is the history, this is the practice, this is the procedure. There's no jurisdiction over the players who are involved in joint practices by the league. It falls to the team. So it's Aaron Donald. What's the team going to do, Charean? They're not going to do anything.
Yeah, the only difference between what Aaron Donald did yesterday and what Myles Garrett did, one was in a nationally televised game and one was in a joint practice. And if someone hadn't been filming it, we would never have seen that. We would have heard, but video is much more powerful than the words. And all we got was that video yesterday, and that told us really how bad it was. And, you know, they make these guys wear Guardian caps for a while to protect head injuries. Maybe they should have been wearing the Guardian caps in joint practices the way he was swinging that thing around. Because, Mike, you're right. If you get hit squarely in the head with that, even with the helmet on, that could do some serious damage. And it's weird to me because you go back to the NFL telling the Washington Commanders you can't investigate yourself. How do teams in this instance penalize themselves? Because the Rams now have jurisdiction over Aaron Donald. They're not going to suspend Aaron Donald. Maybe they fine him. Maybe they make him run some extra laps. Whatever they do, they talk to him. But he's not going to be suspended for any games. And frankly, I think he should be suspended for games. You can't do this. And the NFL could use the personal conduct policy. I mean, if you did this out in public, outside the field, what would happen to you? And you got arrested for assault, which is what it is. But if that happened off the field, Mike, they would penalize a guy under the personal conduct policy. So I understand they don't legislate during practices, that teams have their own practices, because guys fight all the time during team practices. I get that. But when it's a joint practice in training camp and we have video, how does a team get to say, well, that's okay, we're all right, we'll talk to him, he'll be okay? Don't the Bengals get some say in this? Hey, you almost killed our guys. You can't be doing this.
You get your say in it by never doing practices with the Rams ever again. And this is part of the decision-making that coaches have to go through. And I would assume that Zach Taylor trusted Sean McVay to have his guys under control and not let something like this happen. And here's the football coach reality of this. And I'm going to tell a story for something I witnessed when my son was playing. They were doing some sort of a drill. And my son and one of his friends were paired up one-on-one. And something happened and my son got pissed off. And I know just from the demeanor, I knew that he was mad, and he was extremely aggressive and crossed the line in the outpouring. You know, and it's not like he pulled the guy's helmet off and hit him with it, but you could just tell it was a little beyond the line. And the coach, while saying everything that he needed to say, was clearly thrilled by what he saw by way of the fire and the passion and the intensity coming from one of his players. So if you're the Rams and you spent some period of time in the offseason, thinking that Aaron Donald was going to retire, wondering whether or not Aaron Donald still has a fire burning inside of him. Those doubts are erased now. You're happy if you're Sean McVay. Aaron Donald is back. He's ready. This is good. Let's go. Let's bring the Bills to town right now. Because during a game, Aaron Donald is probably not going to blow a gasket that way. You made the point earlier. They know that it's not the same consequence as it is during a game. They know that they're not going to get fined. They know that they're not going to get suspended, especially the star players. Now, if a guy on the fringe of the roster had done this, he'd already be cut. It's the old Jimmy Johnson thing. If the backup long snapper falls asleep in the meeting, he's gone. If it's Troy Aikman, he gets him a pillow. They're getting a pillow for Aaron Donald. They're not going to do anything to Aaron Donald. So that's why the NFL needs to step in. And you mentioned the personal conduct policy. When you look at the policy, the language of the policy would apply to this kind of behavior. And it's upside down to think that once you cross the white line and you're off the field, you could be suspended by the league for assaulting someone. And again, it's become kind of a meme. And because Schefter said assault a few years ago, and the pardon my take guys like to twist his tail about it. Well, you know what? It is. I know it's funny. For some, it depends on your sense of humor. It is assault. And if you did walk up to someone on the street and hit them with a football helmet, you would go to jail. And if you did this away from a football field, you would be subject to a suspension from the NFL. But you do it in a joint practice, and it's not up to the league? I mean, come on. 345 Park Avenue, does that make any damn sense whatsoever as you're trying to figure out what to do about this? Now, we've seen the NFL make up the rules as they go all the time, and this would be an occasion where maybe you do. Maybe if you're Roger Goodell today, you're saying to your lieutenants, I don't care what we've done in the past. This situation cries out for action. And if they don't like it, they can take it up with the union. And the union can take it up with an arbitrator. We can go to Judge Sue L. Robinson and let her watch this tape and let her decide whether or not this is something for which punishment should be imposed. The rules were one thing. Well, now we're changing the rules because I don't care that Aaron Donald didn't think he'd be subject to the personal conduct policy. He is. And we're going to push this forward and we're going to make this change now. They could do that if they wanted. And the only risk they're taking is they lose through the arbitration process. But in the process, they make sure everyone knows we're not going to tolerate this. So I really am hoping. And if we're going to treat everyone fairly and equally, we shouldn't care that it's Aaron Donald. There should be a consequence for this kind of action. There should be. How can there not be? In this modern civilization that we live in, where there are a lot of blurred lines and nobody knows what's right or wrong or up or down or true or false, I'd like to think we could all get behind the idea that what happened yesterday, number one, should not have happened, and number two, there should be a real consequence for it.
Yeah, Mike, I will start with, I think Aaron Donald, regardless of position, is the greatest player in the NFL. And I'd put him right there, maybe a notch below Lawrence Taylor on the list of greatest defensive players of all time. He's that good. But you made the mention of the Rams know he's not going to blow up in games. It's exactly what Aaron Donald does. Twice last year, he choked players. If you remember, he choked Lucas Patrick in one game and DJ Humphries in another, and he ripped off DJ Humphries' helmet, and he didn't swing it at him. At least he had that much control in games, but he's done it before. Remember the meltdown he had in 2016 when he threw off his helmet and he was ejected from the game. He pulled off Quentin Patton's helmet. I mean, this is exactly the kind of thing. There it is. This is exactly the kind of thing Aaron Donald does in games. And I think it's one of the things that makes him so great is that passion and that anger and that fire that he has. And he gets angry and all of that makes him Aaron Donald, but sometimes he gets out of control. He's had 11 fines over the last 7 seasons, $178,000. So this is part of a pattern for Aaron Donald, and at some point, somebody's got to sit him down and say, there's just certain things that you can't do on the football field, and we saw it get totally out of hand yesterday, Mike. So if I'm the Rams, I am concerned that this could bleed over into a game because I've seen this behavior before in games, including twice last year.
It's funny because when my son texted me the video yesterday afternoon, he made a comment along the lines of what you're saying, that he's always doing it. And I have it in my head that he's not, but I stand corrected. My son's right. You're right. The B-roll doesn't lie. He does this stuff. We haven't seen him do it to the Myles Garrett extreme in a game. But you know what? If you don't do something about it, that's how punishment works. That's how consequences work. If someone thinks, I don't know if we're seeing this currently play out in public life, but if someone constantly gets away with something, they keep doing it. And they keep doing it. And they keep doing more. If there's going to be no punishment, you push the boundaries as far as you can. And then when you finally are punished, you look back on everything you've done and you say, man, that punishment barely fits all the crap that I've done. So that's why the NFL needs to do something. Now, the NFL can, and I wrote this last night, they can take action against the Rams if they believe the Rams failed to exercise proper control. And this is one of those situations where you look at it and you say, the outcome would seem to suggest you may have failed to exercise proper control. So hopefully at a minimum, the NFL takes serious action against the Rams. I mean, if they're going to get bent out of shape over the Dolphins tampering with Tom Brady, I'd like to think that the NFL will have a strong reaction to Aaron Donald swinging two helmets at members of the Cincinnati Bengals, at least two of whom were not wearing their helmets at the time by virtue of the fact that Aaron Donald had them in his possession. So let's see how this plays out, because the initial word from the league, we can't do anything about it. Okay, that was yesterday. Today, when the sheriff shows up for work and, as he should, starts asking tough questions to all the people who are telling him, oh, we can't do anything about this, sir. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. We have a pattern and practice that we must respect. That's when it's time for the sheriff to take action and screw the consequences. And I don't mean that. That doesn't apply across the board. When you're trying to fashion real consequences for this kind of conduct, who cares what happens if the union pitches a fit? Who cares what happens if you lose in an arbitration later? At least you stood up for what you thought was the right thing. And here we are 8 days after the league backed off on Deshaun Watson, and I wouldn't be surprised to find out that maybe some people at the very top of the food chain at 345 Park Avenue didn't want to back off. Sometimes you just have to say, I don't care if someone else is ultimately going to tell me you can't do this. I can at least try. And sometimes the effort sends the message that resonates, even if the effort isn't ultimately successful. And I hope that's what the league does today.
Well, and I do too, Mike. And I was surprised by Zach Taylor's reaction afterward. He said it got a little scuffly, and so we just called it, and they called it like 3 plays earlier than it was supposed to be called. But there were some incidents before that, including with Lyle Collins through a Rams helmet at one point, I think. But we don't have any video of that, so it doesn't sound as bad as maybe what it was. But to me, it was more than just a little scuffle. I mean, this was an all-out brawl that could have gotten somebody seriously injured, and it's the type of thing that you would think the league,
it was a dust-up.
Exactly. You would think the league would want to prevent this in the future, and the way to do that, obviously, is to say, we're not going to tolerate this anymore. We can't have this. We're going to make a stand, and if you're going to make a stand, this is the one to do it on, Mike. We have the video. It's clear. It's clear this shouldn't have happened. It's clear it shouldn't happen again, and the only way to make sure it doesn't happen again is to impose some kind of penalty, either on the Rams or on Aaron Donald or both, however you want to do it. But you've got to make a case here of, we are not going to tolerate this. You can't go have joint practices and just take helmets and start swinging them at people.
It may have been Lyle Collins throwing the helmet that activated the citizen journalists who started putting the phones up to see what could happen next. So maybe the Collins thing helped preserve and create the video of Aaron Donald.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.